Have you heard of something called Temu? I think I heard about it before. Apparently, this platform is a real revolution in categories like clothing, home, garden, and beauty. On the website, we can find hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of products that we will never discuss on this channel. I was surprised to find electronics here, including a 4K projector for just $150. A mechanical keyboard with red, green, blue is here too. For how much? For 70 bucks. The site has hundreds of positive verified comments. You can buy a new laptop here for 980 zlotys. Full high-definition screen and SSD drive. You can also find red, green, blue fans with a mirror effect here for 30 zlotys. A blower for cleaning the computer would also be useful, especially since this one only costs 70 zlotys. As soon as I started browsing the electronics category, I got lost for a few hours, making a long list of computer gadgets. And as you know, appetite grows with eating, and despite much lower prices, when you keep adding one interesting product after another to your cart, the final price can turn out to be much higher than you initially expected. However, this is a sponsored video by Temu, so I got a special code for you that will give you discount coupons worth 400 zlotys. On top of that, shipping is free, returns within 90 days are also free, and even if the price of a product you bought drops for some reason within 30 days, you have the right to request a price adjustment and the difference will be refunded to your account. Pretty good, right? So if Temu can offer excellent conditions, lower prices, and at the same time deliver solid products, it would probably be foolish not to give such a sales platform a chance. And even though I was really very frugal in my choices, I have two packages here with just electronics and gadgets that will come in handy on any computer desk. This is Pavel from the Tech Maniac HD channel. Let's see what's inside. Let's see what we have here. What's on the table? 3 rolls, boxes of various sizes, and special cables. Details to come later. Let's maybe start with something handy. And what could be handier than an ergonomic vertical mouse? I have to admit, for a few years I've been thinking about trying out such a gadget, but the better ones were just too expensive. On the other hand, the cheaper ones had terrible reviews and, at least according to buyers, something would go wrong with them after a short time. But since we're looking for a good and cheap product, we should look for it on more exotic platforms like Temu, for example. I chose a well-known Asian brand that has been making mice for quite some time. The F36 model is much larger than a standard mouse, but the grip really does feel more natural and you don't have to twist your wrist like you do with a regular mouse. On the bottom, you'll find a dedicated USB receiver. It's held in a recess by a magnet. It's not very strong, but even when shaking or hitting the mouse, it still keeps the receiver in place. Besides the 3 gliders and sensor, there's a 3-position slider that functions as the power switch and red, green, blue activation. Besides that, we have 3 LEDs here indicating the connection to the USB receiver or one of the 2 Bluetooth devices. To fully utilize all the mouse's features, it's worth downloading the manufacturer's dedicated software, but don't worry. The application is small and takes up about 11 megabytes of RAM. On the other hand, it doesn't burden the processor at all, and I'm not mentioning this without reason. Well, anyone who uses the IQE software for managing Corsair peripherals knows exactly what I mean. Their hardware might be very interesting, but the software leaves a lot to be desired. See for yourself, over 1 GB of RAM consumed. The processor is also being pushed to work here. And even though this computer has a Ryzen 7 5800X3D IQE, is consuming another 5% of that resource. So the mouse application I chose is not only lightweight, but also fully functional. Thanks to it, we can quickly switch the polling rate, that is, the sampling frequency. At this moment, the mouse is connected via Bluetooth and we can choose a polling rate from 90 to 133 Hz. I checked and the manufacturer isn't lying. On the other hand, when we switch the connection to the dedicated USB receiver, we have the option to increase the polling rate up to 500 times per second. Maybe it's not 1000 Hz like in top gaming mice, but as you can see here, a professional Logitech mouse costing around 400 zlotys has a refresh rate of about 130 Hz. That's simply the maximum for this kind of Logitech mouse. It's actually funny that a vertical mouse from Temu for 49 zlotys is much more suitable for gaming than this so-called premium product. It does weigh about 105 grams, so it's not exactly super light, but that's still much less than the office mouse I mentioned. A high polling rate is very desirable, but it can increase power consumption. In this case, power consumption is minimal, so we only need to charge the mouse occasionally. Only turning on the red, green, blue will force us to reach for the cable more often. From the app, we can change the mode, speed and brightness of the lighting. One of the buttons is used to switch between them, but if we don't need that, we can assign any other function to it, such as increasing the volume. We can assign the mute function to the button below. If you don't need to change the dots per inch sensitivity from the mouse, you can set the button under the scroll wheel to resume and pause playback or to skip to the next track. You can choose anything here that suits you best. Of all the buttons on the mouse, only the one used to change the connection protocol is not programmable. A mouse like this for $50, that's pretty cool. Although it felt pretty strange at first, after a few hours I got used to this different new grip. I'll admit, before, on days when I spent many hours at the computer, I used to get this weird pain like in the bone of my right forearm, and only the right one. It's really hard to say whether the cause is sometimes the weather, the pressure or something else, but it's been 2 weeks since I started using the new mouse and I haven't experienced that kind of pain yet. Is a more natural grip the reason for this? Well, not enough time has passed to be 100% sure. On Temu you can find other similar mice for even 20 or 30 zlotys, like this one for example. It doesn't have red, green, blue lighting, Bluetooth or extra programmable buttons, but it's wireless and charges via USB-C. It costs only 22 zlotys and 69 groszy. Shipping? Of course it's free. So if you want to try out a mouse like this, such a price probably won't hurt your budget. In the description and in the pinned comment, I'll leave a link to the Temu app and links to all the products I've mentioned. And of course, later I'll also give you coupons worth 400 zlotys, so if you decide to do some shopping, you can save quite a bit. Anyway, since there's a new mouse, maybe it's time for a new mouse pad. And I'm not talking about a boring little cloth rectangle, but about a proper pad for your keyboard and mouse that will also make your computer setup look better. In this regard, the selection on Temu is so vast that it can give you a headache. I like the ones in the Japanese style or the one with Mount Fuji, but they don't really match the interior of the room. Different landscapes or cats are cute, but they also don't fit the decor at all. And since it's so hard to decide on something specific instead of one, I chose 3. I know that an astronaut against the backdrop of planets doesn't really go with the automotive theme in the room, but this view sparks my imagination. But the classic Porsche definitely fits the chosen theme. In the size 90 by 40 centimeters, the pad costs only 52 zlotys. And I also got a second Porsche, this time with a front view and a subtle Japanese theme sneaking in. The price is almost the same, but like I said, there are tons of pads there. I picked these 3, but if you find something you like too, drop a link in the comments. I'd be happy to take a look. To be honest, I don't know if all of them are, but the 3 pads I ordered are rubberized, stitched, and I'd say they're definitely high quality. Yeah, I know these are just little things, but something like this can really brighten up your setup and bring a lot of joy at a very low cost. And since we're talking about joy, I think many of you will agree with me that games are something that brings happiness to a lot of people. So, it's time for a controller. The Xbox controller is the most commonly chosen one. Is that justified? Probably not. The white version is the cheapest option. For a gamepad that costs nearly 200, you still have to put in double a batteries. Another problem is that many controllers, including those from Xbox, can experience something called analog stick drift. This causes the controller to start pulling in one direction, which significantly interferes with gameplay. However, this problem does not affect analog sticks that use the Hall effect. This technology is more expensive, but on Temu we can get controllers at a low price whose analog sticks work this way. Makiniki G5 Pro is a very interesting product, and on my website you can find an in-depth review of this controller. The link is in the description. At the same price, we can also find an Aeolion product here. The K10 model is not only available in 3 color variants, but it also comes with a docking station that allows you to put the controller down while charging it at the same time. Interestingly, inside it there is a USB Type-A port where we can insert a USB receiver. The box also includes a second set of analog stick covers. The shorter ones are better for fighting games, where we need to quickly push the sticks all the way in different directions. The taller ones, on the other hand, are used for games where precision matters and where we benefit from not fully tilting the sticks. For example, walking in adventure games, driving in racing games, or aiming in shooters. Here I have the Xbox Elite Series 2 controller for comparison, and yes, it's nice, but honestly, even though the build quality is very high, technically it's nothing extraordinary. And even though it costs around 650 zlotys, these analog sticks still don't use the Hall effect. Therefore, there's a chance that over time they'll be susceptible to drift. Then either the controller ends up in the trash or you have to get creative, and as you can see in this tutorial, fixing analog stick drift isn't exactly easy. For the price of one of these, you can buy almost 3 from Temu, which in my opinion are simply a better choice than the Xbox Elite Series 2. At least in terms of functionality and price, the analog sticks move smoothly and satisfyingly. The analog triggers also use the Hall effect here, and their surface, as well as the surface of the left bumper and right bumper buttons, is textured. The thumb buttons function properly but feel slightly loose. The directional pad has a slight indentation in the middle which fits the thumb perfectly. Using it is definitely enjoyable. At the bottom there are 2 additional programmable buttons. The Elite Series 2 controller is kind of rubberized all over, which gives a really nice feel. The basic Xbox controller and the Aeolion K10 are just regular plastic. The K10 model doesn't even have that texture that increases grip, but it does have a transparent case, so you can not only see the battery and electronics inside, but in the lower part you can see the weights, which are part of the system used to create vibrations during gameplay. And it really creates a very cool effect. It's also interesting that the cover is held in place by magnets, so you can remove it and replace it with a new one, or a different one. If you don't like the illuminated manufacturer's logo, you can replace it and put something of your own there, maybe a theme from your favorite game or your own nickname. The controller's lighting is bright and the colors are vivid. It's cool, but when playing in the evening it was a bit distracting for me. Fortunately, the manual tells us how to manage it. We can set a breathing effect, choose one of the fixed colors, and also adjust the brightness. The polling rate here is 1000 Hz both with the cable and through the dedicated USB receiver. Pairing with Bluetooth devices is also possible here, so we can even use it with a smartphone. K10 comes in 3 variants. Although I considered orange, I ultimately chose white, but from what I've read online, many people preferred the purple and green combination. This color scheme seems to be from Joker. The controller's functionality and quality are very good. Now that I can compare all 3 with each other, unfortunately, I would definitely avoid Xbox controllers and I won't buy them again. Of course, the Aeolion product isn't perfect and some compromises had to be made somewhere. Replacing the analog stick caps on the Elite Microsoft controller is a real pleasure because they are held in place by strong magnets. Here you can really feel the high quality and precision of the craftsmanship. But in the K10 model, it was done so cheaply that it probably couldn't have been done any cheaper. Just with some simple clips. Of course, they do their job, but while we can swap magnetic analog covers millions of times, here I'd say there's a risk that something will wear out, get worn down, or eventually break. So far, I've swapped them about 50 times and they still fit tightly, but it's worth keeping in mind that after a certain number of times, you might be able to take them out, but you won't be able to put them back in. Unless you use glue. This is the biggest flaw I've noticed and the one I can criticize the most. Just don't overdo it with the replacements and it'll be fine. However, what I love about the K10 model and what both Microsoft controllers lack is the physical battery level indicator. Always visible, always accessible. Another interesting product I found on Temu is this small travel adapter with 5 USB ports, one of which is a 65-watt power delivery port. Anyway, let me show you what I mean. If you happen to travel, you know how annoying these different plug standards can be. You can't plug the one from the United Kingdom into a socket in Poland, but with the help of a pencil, you actually can. Chinese, American or Australian plugs, hotels can be different too, which can really drive you crazy. Since we already take a phone charger with us when we travel, sometimes also one for a portable console and often for a laptop too, maybe instead of carrying all that clutter, it's better to take one universal solution that will charge all these devices and at the same time, make sure we can plug it into almost any standard outlet. That solution is definitely better. The adapter I chose costs only 138 zlotys. On the bottom, there are 2 USB Type-A ports that support the 18-watt quick charge standard. Right next to them are 2 USB-C ports with power delivery. Each provides up to 20 watts, and on the side there's a third one with 65 watts of power. I also picked 2 cables that are certified for 100 watts. The price is definitely okay, especially since they have a small screen showing the current load in watts. It may not be very bright, but it definitely does its job. Anyway, this adapter will save us in a pinch when we need to plug in any other standard into a socket in another country. And at the same time, we can use it to charge 2 phones, a tablet, a console, and a laptop. 65 watts is more than enough for gaming while charging a device like the GPD Win Max 2 at the same time. It's a 10-inch gaming laptop with a built-in controller. For a complete review of this device, check out the link in the description of my channel. These 65 watts also allow you to comfortably use a large dual-screen powerful laptop while charging at the same time, at least for office work. Gaming activates the dedicated powerful graphics card, which in this model can consume up to 150 watts. Then 65 from the adapter is no longer enough for us. Of course, on Temu you can find other, more powerful USB-C chargers. For example, a 440 watt one is an interesting option for gadget enthusiasts, but you have to remember that a single USB-C still offers a maximum of 100 watts, so it won't replace the 330 watt power supply from a gaming laptop. I also needed a tablet, and you'll find plenty of those on Temu. However, 10 inches is too much. On the other hand, 7 inches is too little again, but I found a really nice one with a diagonal of 8.4 inches. That size still fits in a man's hand and perfectly suits my needs. The case is made entirely of aluminum. The processor is sufficient for basic tasks, costing 750 zlotys. Admittedly, that's not very cheap, especially since on Temu, for 470 zlotys, you can get a 10-inch tablet with a bigger battery, newer Android, and even a mouse, keyboard, headphones, case, stylus, and stand included in the set. It really would be an interesting option, but because of its size and convenience, this one is perfect for remote camera control like no other. But it's also possible that from time to time I'll use it as an extra screen for my computer or even in my computer, because why not? If you'd like to find out how to turn an old smartphone or tablet into another screen for your computer, either with a cable or even wirelessly, I'll leave a link in the description to the relevant guide, which you can find on my website. You'll also find a link to the tablet I chose there. What more can I say? You'll also find a link to register in the app in the description. Clicking on it will let you unlock coupons worth 400 zlotys. My friend decided to check if it really works the way Temu promises, and yes, after clicking the link he got 400 zlotys, but he was also allowed to spin the wheel, and he was lucky enough that the 400 zlotys doubled. Something like that really motivated him to install the app on his phone. He quickly created an account, and here's my small note. The coupons will probably only work with new accounts and they expire after 1 day, so if we're going to do this, we should be ready to shop. Anyway, after registering and entering the app, a confirmation appeared about receiving coupons worth 800 zlotys. If for some reason it doesn't work for you, just enter the code DQP 2643 in the search bar at the top. The mouse I tested happened to be on sale for 3 zlotys and 90 groszy. He also took a travel adapter, and since he needed another wall charger and a tool set, it was hard not to take them at such a low price. The total value of the purchases should have been 325 zlotys and 90 groszy, but with the promotions it's already 237. After subtracting one of the coupons, the total comes to 137 zlotys and 87 groszy. No matter how you look at it, it's an absolutely great deal. Pickup at InPost is free, he paid with Blick, and he's currently waiting for the package. However, if you want to get the most and pay as little as possible, take a look at the purchase amounts that trigger specific coupons. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment and check out my site www.techmaniaczd.pl for more inspiring content via the user-friendly menu. See you in the next one.